What is going on, gunfighters? Saddle up for another episode of Gunfighter Life, where we talk about gunfighting the right way, with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world, first-hand experience. Before we get into the topic, I'm going to put in the bio, per the normal. And I know that this gets redundant for people that have listened to many episodes, and likely you just skip ahead through it, but there's a reason I put it in. A lot of people on YouTube have a lot of opinions on guns and gunfighting and the best thing in a gunfight, but I keep it in because I'm blessed that God has gotten me through a life of being a professional gunfighter, whether that's in the military, law enforcement, private contractor. We all have our opinions and our biases. We're human, but I hopefully come at it grounded in reality. And that's the reason I leave that in. If you want to skip ahead, go ahead. Skip around 3 minutes and 45 seconds, and I'll see you in the Who am I? A question we should all ask ourselves. I am, first and foremost, a servant of God, made in His very own image. A follower of Jesus Christ. A simple man called by God to the Great Commission to share the good news of Jesus Christ. Next, a little bit about my background and what God has allowed me to do and blessed me to do in life. Grew up what most would consider very poor, in the backwoods of the southeastern and mid-Atlantic United States, hunting and fishing. Joined the Marine Corps at 17. Did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. So a decorated Marine Corps combat veteran. Infantry assaultman. After the combat tours, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. Also a veteran of law enforcement. I served with LAPD. I was a sworn peace officer, a cop for LAPD. I worked regular patrol assignments and more specialized assignments. One of those more specialized assignments was warrant service, fugitive recovery. Also had some other law enforcement roles. I am an FBI certified firearms instructor and been certified by another 3-letter government agency in a lot of firearms and training things. I've also been a private contractor, worked in the private sector pertaining to tactics and gunfighting and protecting America from enemies foreign and domestic. I served as the commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters in a large metropolitan area. That was our primary mission, to stop active shooters, which sadly are a thing in America today. I've also been blessed to do quite a bit of competition shooting. Started my first formal competitions even before joining the Marine Corps at 17. I had won more shooting competitions than I can remember. I have competed in all manner of disciplines in shooting. I've been blessed to be a state rifle and pistol champion, West Coast regional champion. Like I said, been blessed to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. Mentioned hunting. I've hunted to put meat on the table starting when I was a child. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide, hunting and slaying all manner of beast. And I don't apologize for that. Humbled to be the host of 3 podcasts. Simple Man Sermons, Alpha Male Podcast, and Gunfighter Life. Obviously, as things not mentioned, I've been blessed to do many other things. But, again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, a believer and follower of the Bible, the Word, Jesus Christ. and I don't apologize for that. With that, now today's episode is Better Know a Cartridge, another episode about a cartridge. Now, I asked on Patreon on our private chat this morning, earlier today, whatever time it was, cartridges they might want to hear about. And Cliffy, thanks for supporting on Patreon, he asked me to do one on the 460 Smith & Wesson. So, I'm going to do one on the 444 Marlin. You're welcome. No, but in all seriousness, hopefully one day I'll do one on the 460 Smith & Wesson. But I was already thinking about the 444 Marlin, so I'm going to do that one first. The 444 Marlin is kind of in a league all its own. It is a big bore brush busting annihilator of a cartridge for lever action guns. Now, this is not a new cartridge. Per my reloading manual, Hornady, give credit where credit is due, Hornady reloading manual, it came out in 1964. America was a far different place back then. This was, I believe, pre the kind of hippie and all that thing movement. A lot of things were different back then in the 60s. The way we hunted was certainly different. We didn't have these computers. We didn't have laser rangefinders, at least not the common hunter, if they existed at all. We didn't have things like that. There were optical telescopic sights, what we refer to as scopes today, but a lot of hunters hunted with iron sights. And in fact, a lot of rifles came still with iron sights. If you got a bolt action rifle back then, unless it was a custom thing, likely a Winchester, Model 70, a Remington Model 700, it came with iron sights. And a lot of people, even today, but especially back then, hunted with lever action guns. The 30-30. And I'll say this is right in that transition period, the 64, when we went from the pre-64 to the post-64 and the Model 70. Also, a lot of people really like the pre-64 lever action Winchesters. This is right around that era. Marlin came out with a 444 Marlin. What's a man to do if he doesn't want to just hunt with a good old 30-30 or even a 45-70? What if a man wants to hunt with a lever action gun with a ridiculously powerful freight train of a round? Enter the 444 Marlin. Now, the 444 Marlin, think of it as a really long, really powerful, in its own class, shooting similar bullets to a 44 Magnum. 44 Magnum, even in a lever action, is known as being a hard-hitting, close-range cartridge. It is known for being a good deer-stopping round, even a good elk-stopping round, the 44 Magnum. But what if you just want more? What if you want to beef that sucker up? Again, the 444 Marlin. Now, per my Hornady reloading manual, it lists a special category for 44 Remington Magnum in a rifle, different from your normal handgun rounds. Handgun loads, I should say. And it's pushing a 200 grain bullet at 2100 feet a second. That's a lot of power for a handgun round in a rifle. It really is. A real common loading for the 44 mag is a 240 grain bullet at 1800, and that's kind of a standard. That's a hot load, 240 grains at 1800 feet a second. Now, the 444 Marlin, at least in this, starts at a 240 grain bullet, and it's going at 2400 feet a second. Again, that's a freight train. The same manual lists a 300 grain bullet at 2K, at 2,000 feet a second. I don't know what that is in foot-pounds, but there probably is going to be an exclamation point at the end of it. That's a lot of foot-pounds. That's a lot of energy. Now, some might be saying, well, why not the 45-70? Say 45-70 is a great round. It killed many a buffalo. It's been around a long time. I've heard it referred to as the old soldier that just won't die. Same manual, and it lists a 45-70. Now, this is a regular loading. I know you can get super hot and crazy with the 45-70, but to be fair, you probably could do the same thing with the 444 Marlin. Go hotter than what's published. But it lists a 300 grain bullet at 1900 feet a second. That's good. That's a lot of power. It's not as powerful as the 444 Marlin. And likely, many more people know about the 4570 than the 444 Marlin. And for whatever reason, people like these obscure cartridges. They do the best on not all the platforms, but on some of the platforms I put these out on. They do the best. So we're talking about the 444 Marlin today. Again, credit where credit is due. My old trusty Hornady reloading manual, which is responsible for a lot of the content in these cartridge talks. I've had it a long time. The 444 Marlin is a big cylindrical semi-rimmed case, which Remington loads with 240 grain bullet to the velocities of 2,350 feet per second. The 444 Marlin is a lot more cartridge than the 44 Remington Magnum. Again, these are Hornady's words. And historically is a short to moderate range round, which is at its best hunting in brush. Its power makes it useful for most North American game hunted within its effective range. And it continues. So why would you want this cartridge? Well, some men just like hunting with really powerful cartridges. I'm not going to judge that. That is what it is. If that's you, then this might be a cartridge for you. What would this cartridge be great at? Well, moderate range, spot and stalk or still or ambush hunting, hunting from a canoe, things like that in thick, dense brush. I love hunting from a canoe. Hunting, let's say, moose from a canoe. That would be a great role for this rifle. It would fit in great for that. Stalking in dark timber. Again, almost anything in North America. I would say up to and including grizzly bear. Now, to be fair, I've hunted a lot of things in North America. I've been a professional hunter. I've never hunted grizzly bear. But I would think a 300 grain bullet at, I don't know, 2,000 feet a second would do okay on a grizzly bear, especially with proper bullet construction. So in close, dense cover, hunting really anything. And you might think it's only good for big game. Well, I'm not going to tell you to do this, but I'm going to tell you it may be possible. You may be able to look up some other kind of loads like trail boss loads or some other kind of powder to load this cartridge safely way down. So you could go from mild to wild in this cartridge. Because you're not dealing with insane velocities, if you did something like a heavy for caliber, let's say 300 grain bullet at a low velocity, safely with safe pressures, because with a lot of powders, if you don't know this, if you go down too far, you can't just go down so far because all the powder will ignite at once and you'll get an actual spike in pressure and could blow the gun up with far less powder than what is called for. But some powders can be safely used to less velocity. Do your own research on that. But you could load this. And as we talked about and mentioned in other episodes, for prepping, for survival, you could have a 300 grain bullet suitable for small and medium game that's super quiet. Without a suppressor, without a tax stamp, without a bunch of ATF hassle, that's totally legal and totally lethal. I've never done it with this cartridge, but knowing what I know about ballistics tells me that it's possible, or very likely. Then you can load up your super hot rounds to turn a grizzly bear's head into a canoe, if you so choose to. Hunting moose in dense cover. If you like to be in the western states, but you like hunting instead of in the wide open in the dark timber. If you like hunting in the creek bottoms and the willows. Or again, if you just want a whole lot of power. You don't have to justify it to me or anybody else. If you want a 444 Marlin. Why might you get this over something else like let's say the obvious choice of 4570? Well, perhaps you really like the 44 mag. Perhaps you already load. If you're probably a reloader if you're buying this cartridge. So maybe you already reload for the 44 Rem mag. So the bullets and that stuff is a crossover. You don't have to go out and buy special bullets, especially if you cast your own bullets, which I have done in the past. I don't do anymore. But if you cast your own bullets, if you have a bullet mold M44, that's a lot of your cost right there. That's one of the cool things about these rounds that are in this kind of category. You can cast your own lead bullets for them and shoot them rather affordably, especially for center fire rounds, and especially affordably for a round of this amount of power. So you could do all that with this cartridge, especially, again, if you already are set up for 44 cal as opposed to 45 cal, that would give this cartridge a distinct advantage. It's a cool cartridge. I really like it. I don't own one. Again, I'm not a gun collector, but I think it will be a fine cartridge for its intended application. So, if you want to get a pair of LL Bean boots and go on eBay and get an old Jones hat and get a jacket and duck camo and go hunt moose out of a canoe, this might be the cartridge for you in an old Marlin lever action rifle. It's a cool one. It's got a lot of merit. It's got a lot of power. Guys, if you like this content, consider going to goodshepherdtraining.com and becoming a patron. Thanks for listening to the end of the episode. Tactical tip of the day. A good, healthy, natural survival food. Peanuts. Period. Peanuts. If you want to get crazy, peanuts with salt. They store a long time. They're easy to eat. They don't require cooking. If you're going hunting, you're going fishing, you're going out on a canoe trip, you're going hiking, whatever. If doing any of those kind of things and you think you might be out a while, or you have the potential that it might turn into a long-term trip, peanuts have a lot of calories per pound. They have protein, they have fat. What else, what else could you want? They store a long time. As you might surmise from me talking about hunting so much, I love hunting, I love eating meat, but it's a lot harder to store. And biltong is good. Jerky is good, but by definition, it doesn't really have fat. Not much anyway. Fat is important. Fat is the most efficient way to store calories. That's why your body does it. Anyway, if you need calories or want to take calories with you for an emergency, a cheap, healthy, natural food, peanuts. If you want to throw some other stuff in there, almonds are good too, but they're a lot more expensive per pound. Peanuts, pretty much nutritionally, at least as far as I can tell, are as nutritious or more so, and they're cheaper. And they're just great. If you want to get crazy, peanut butter works too, but it's a harder barrier to entry, if we can call it that. To eat peanut butter, you at least need to break off a stick and eat it. You can literally eat peanuts on the go as you're walking, as you're hiking. You can have a sack of peanuts, a sleeve or two of peanuts, and just literally eat them as you're walking. You're not going to have some kind of crazy smell that's going to scare away a bunch of game or anything like that. Anyway, it's a good food for being out in the wild. Good food anytime, but especially being out in the wild. It's convenient. Again, it's healthy. It's got a lot of calories per pound. Don't think that you need some kind of crazy expensive survival freeze-dried food. Literally, get a bunch of peanuts. The tactical verse of the day. You shall not muzzle the ox while it treads out the grain. You find that in the Torah. You find that spoken of by Paul in the New Testament. If you don't really know what that means or refers to, you should probably read your Bible and figure it out. You shall not muzzle the ox while it treads out the grain. With that, men, thanks for listening and have a blessed day.